Can I welcome everyone this evening to the Faversham Town Council meeting, the 7th of September, councillors and public. First, the Mayor will allow a maximum, which we won't, of 30 minutes, but we do have one letter this evening, which I will read out for you. Dear Madam Mayor and councillors, at the full Town Council meeting of the 11th of May 2020, a question was raised from the public gallery regarding the Section 106 money due to Faversham towards the cost of refurbishing the St Nicholas allotments. The response from Councillor Hook was that the promised money had not been received and needed to be pursued. I have listened to the audio recording of the Swale Borough Council meeting of the 30th of April 2020, and I quote the comments of Councillor Simmons regarding the boundary fronts. This is the extract. You will see that the Section 106 agreement should come in on the occupation of the 63rd dwelling. To the best of my knowledge, none of those dwellings are currently occupied, and so, through the agreement of officers, I managed to broker an agreement that the money be released earlier to allow the fencing to go ahead. That was the extract. So the letter, we go back. Assuming funds are still outstanding, my questions are, following Councillor Hook's comments on the 11th of May, may I please have an update as to what has been done during the past 4 months to expedite release of this money? It is my understanding that costs paid by Faversham in June 2019 in respect of the fence were in the region of £20,000. How much are you hopeful of receiving from Swale? Secondly, on the matter of the St Nicholas allotments, I should like to draw to your attention to plans submitted to the Planning Authority by the developer, Bovis Vistry, formerly Linden Homes, for the Ospringe Brickworks, i.e. the housing development along the Western Link and adjacent to the allotment site. Some of the most recent submissions are available on the planning portal under 2050 0591 sub. These include hard landscaping, steps down to a path which Bovis aspires to route through the middle of the Faversham Town Council owned allotment plots, and consequently through the 2.5 galvanised balustrades security perimeter fence. Comment I have back here in answer is in response to the questions. We have not pursued the funding from the S106 in the last 4 months. You may not be aware, as it was not clear to me, but Swale Borough Council have not actually passed planning permission for the fencing as yet. They have asked us to undertake mitigation measures before doing so. Adam has now emailed Graham Thomas on several occasions asking for a site meeting to discuss these possible mitigations. It would seem that Swale only have issue with the height of the fence, which runs adjacent to the houses, but by cutting off the top of the fence, it's made insecure. It would be helpful for Graham to meet on site so he could see the height of the fence in relation to Bovis site. Adam is in regular contact with Bovis site manager and has seen their plans, and the proposed footpaths do not go through the middle of the allotment site but go either side. I did have a message from Borough Councillor, Councillor Jackson. I think she would like to come in on this and just give us an update. Is that possible, Councillor Jackson?
So I'm muted. Yes, that's possible. Yes, on the meeting on the 30th, approval actually was given. There was a motion put up by Councillor Ben Martin to delegate it to officers to approve, subject to officers and negotiating with mitigating measures to soften the appearance. and this was seconded by Councillor Ken Rolls. The lawyer who was present, the senior lawyer, suggested a composite motion. This was defeated by the planning committee, and it was put to the vote and it was approved. So this actually has been approved, and I've got it in front of me tonight, stating that it was approved on the 30th of April. So they can't take the fence down. Yes, the officers have got to meet, Graham Thomas has got to meet with Adam, I presume. But he can't see what mitigating work can be done. As regarding the footpaths, I have seen the plans and they have put up 3 ways to go. 2, one either side of the allotments and 1 straight through the allotments. The one through the allotments, I would absolutely like clarification that we are not going to support that, and that Louise will get in touch with Bovis to confirm this. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas would like to have.
Just to help tie up a couple of loose ends there, I do completely agree with Councillor Jackson that as a town council we will most certainly do everything we can to stop a footpath going through the centre of the allotments. However, the information I've recently received is that Bovis have advised Adam Andrews that the plans that are being seen, I don't know if mistake's the wrong word, but they have overlays to them, and they have actually deleted the path with the steps down towards the allotments, and only the northern path and the southern path remain options that Bovis plan to pursue. So my understanding is Bovis have acknowledged that they're not going to get a footpath across the allotment site.
Right. That's good. So presumably we can get that. Oh, Councillor Martin would like to come in.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Thomas, for the clarification. When I looked at this, it does appear that the plan used for drainage is one based on early plan rather than based on the latest site plans. So I do think that we should be we should still seek clarification, but I do think that that has been altered. And the other thing is, I think we should write to Swale Borough Council and ask that their officers meet in pursuant to the planning meeting of the 30th of April, I believe was said, as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
I was just going to add to Councillor Martin's proposal there about writing to Swale Borough Council. I think we should ask the Borough Council planning officer to confirm the extract from Councillor Simmons's comment at the Borough Council meeting of the 30th of April 2020 that the officers have agreed that the money will be released earlier to fund the fencing. I think we should get that clarified with, I think it's Graham Thomas who's dealing with it, so he'll be the best person for us to write as a council to. Thank you.
Thank you. And we could write and inform Maria Newman, obviously, of what we intend to do. Thank you. That was the only letter this evening. So we will go on to the agenda. Apologies. To receive apologies and acceptance of reasons for absence.
Thank you. I've got apologies from councillors Hook, Saunders and BJ Martin, who are all at the joint transport meeting at the moment. Thank you.
They may join us later. 2, declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Members who have an interest to declare on any items on the agenda must declare the existence and nature of it at the start of the meeting and act in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct, S27, Localism Act 2011. No pecuniary interest. Thank you. Right, previous minutes, item 3. Our extraordinary meeting, which was very short. Councillor Martin.
Madam Mayor, may I propose that we accept those minutes?
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Thomas. Can we all vote on that to accept those? Can we see? I can't quite see everyone, but yes, yes. I think we're there. Thank you. Oh my goodness. And Mayor's announcements. Well, to be honest, I've written a whole A4 pad, but there really isn't time for that tonight. But really, although August we thought would be a quiet month, it certainly hasn't been. I mean, so there's been so many meetings, such a lot of progress on 20's Plenty, the neighbourhood plan, what can I say? Councillors and the community working so hard on that. Certainly need thanking for that. August, I did visit the fish bar one Sunday. They had a fundraiser and raised £1,400 for our cottage hospital, which was really much appreciated by the hospital. A visit to Perry Court to show their COVID systems, obviously a tour of some of the houses. And clearly they will be delayed because obviously they can have fewer workmen on site, but they're working hard to get that development progressing well. Then a sad farewell at the Alexander Centre for Chair of the Gunpowder WI, Susie Detroit. 60 members, 2 lots of 30 turned up to say farewell. It was a sudden decision. She decided to return to Australia, to her family, to her very young grandchildren. Clearly COVID influenced that decision and we were sorry to lose her, but it's their gain over there. She'll be missed. Active Faversham, that meeting was so interesting. We've had so many meetings that are so positive for the future. That was great. Thank you to Councillor Irwin for organising that. Then the BJ Victory in Japan Day Memorial. What a privilege to lay the wreath, commemorate the 75th anniversary in Japan. Obviously the bunting that's been made will be displayed at some point. It's just been delayed, that's all. We will display it for people to see. I was shocked when I found out that 226,000 civilians were killed in that part of the war, and it was a part of the war that we didn't really get to hear in our history lessons, so I found that a real privilege. Mayor's COVID Awards, you've probably seen some of those going out. Just thank yous to people that had kept us going, and they were much appreciated, and there was emotion. Some, they were so surprised. And then 2 awards on the marketplace a week or so ago were the darts team, Faversham darts team, have we heard of them? But they had been doing lots of fundraising. One of the things that made me smile, and there's been many, they sent an ice cream van, they paid for it to go to Newton Place on a hot day and provide all the staff with an ice cream. It's the small things that really do matter sometimes. So we thank them. 3 new businesses on one Saturday morning, welcomed. What a time to open new businesses in COVID, a recession, but we wish them well. We just wish them all well. And then we were taken to see the bus. You've probably heard about Bus 72, our exciting youth project. It's coming along very well. So hopefully in the autumn, there will be an official launch that will come up. And it continues for me to be a fantastic privilege to be mayor of our town. I continually meet members of this community who I had no idea existed, or the committees that they belong to, even though I've lived here 70 years. So it really is a privilege to go out and around the community. This morning, 2 ladies I met in Middle Row, tending the pots, the flower tubs, volunteers from, I believe, Faversham in Bloom. That was their project. They've done it quietly. I'd never have known if I hadn't bumped into them this morning. There is much going on in our community by our councillors, but by community members as well. And I think it's fantastic. Yes, this morning we welcomed back our swimming pool, which is a big challenge, but so needed. Oh my goodness, there was just so many smiling faces. People that had had their first swim in months and months were so pleased to be back. Our cinema, I believe, this week is opening. And one meeting I found very encouraging was our revival meeting, where the Carnival Club turned up. Yes, we can't have our carnival, we've got to be realistic, but they are still hopefully having the window spotting competition and a display exhibition in number 12. The Christmas lights are telling us there will be no switch on, which we accept obviously, but they are going to attempt to put up as many lights as is safe to do so, which will brighten us all up in the dark, dreary evenings. The Literary Festival clearly are hesitant about February, all being inside. That was fantastic last year, but they're going to try and keep some things, maybe the competitions for the children and things. You know, everybody's trying to think how they can keep the flame burning, although it'll be low, just to keep us all optimistic for the future. And I think people are being realistic and optimistic as we move into the autumn. We need to keep safe and hopefully avoid the COVID spike. We don't want it in Faversham. So thank you everyone, and it really is very encouraging out in the community at the minute. Everybody's doing their best, the school children are back, and it's great to hear them and see them walking through the town, it really is. So that's the end of my announcements, thank you.
Madam Mayor, before we go any further, we've missed one public question from Mr. Oswald Jones. Would you like me to read it out?
Oh yes, please. I haven't seen that one.
So he says, I write as a registered elector and council tax contributor concerning the Town Council St Nicholas allotment site security fencing. The western stretch was damaged by the former owner Linden Home South East development contractor during the sheet piling earth retention works December 2019 through to March 2020. When will Bovis Homes, who amalgamated Linden Home South East, reinstate into a vertical attitude the Town Council's high cost asset boundary security fence? I might be best placed to answer that.
Thank you.
If everybody's happy. Adam is currently negotiating with Bovis Homes to remove a large quantity of waste on our site, and once that work has been done, the fence will be rectified.
Thank you.
Yes, any comments on that, councillors? No, that's fine, thank you. Item 5, 20 is plenty. Committee meeting to receive the minutes from the 3rd of September.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to present the minutes of the 20 Plenty meeting held last Thursday. Has everyone managed to read the copy that was sent out to them? Mm-hmm. It was quite a straightforward meeting, giving updates on Commonplace, the KCC consultation, and the highways work that's been going on. Hopefully it was all very comprehensive. One of the key things that came out of it, I guess, was that the committee decided to show its preference that the entry gateways, ultimately we'd like them all to be red rather than the conservation buff, and to be honest, the red's going to fade over time anyway. So I don't think it would be too bad in the conservation area. So that is what the committee will be aiming for in the longer term. Other than that, I'd just like to propose that the Town Council accept the minutes, unless they've got any questions they want to ask me. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Williams, thank you. And could you all vote to accept those minutes?
Madam Mayor, before we move on, we also need to just formally agree the minutes from the July meeting as well, please, if we may.
Absolutely. 2nd of July, the 3rd of September. July. Again, do we have a proposer to accept the 2nd of July? Councillor Thomas. And a seconder? Councillor Williams. Thank you very much. Item 6, climate and biodiversity. To receive the minutes dated the 13th of July 2020 and agree any recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a few quite bigger items that we've been discussing through this committee, but I would like to go through some of the others first, and I'll come back to the one which has a recommendation. Over the last meeting, we discussed PPE recycling. We had suggestions from members of the public about whether we could recycle PPE. We decided it wasn't really suitable for the town council to do that at this stage. So that's something we left. Some things we're pursuing at the moment is community gardening. We're trying to establish volunteer groups in different parts of the community who might be willing to do community gardening, such as what Faversham and Bloom do now on certain areas of the town. This is something I think which, as Madam Mayor suggested in her update, that communities like to get involved, and it's really kind of positive things. Hopefully, moving forward, that'll be really, really good. And obviously, anyone that does know anyone or any in their wards that have any volunteers, that please do make them known to the town council. That'd be very good. We're also looking at potential ways of improving the urban planting in the town centre. So we'll be thinking of different ways that we can continue to add more biodiversity, possibly even tree planting in the town centre, working with the Public Spaces Committee. Litter picks, as most things this year, the Great British Spring Clean was rescheduled to this month. So as you've probably all seen, there's some litter picks organised coming up at the end of the month, working with different community groups and individuals in the wards. So that's moving on really well, and hopefully again it'll be a good awareness raising, but also a good positive project. The final thing that we discussed at the last meeting was about creating a pesticide-free town action plan. So I just want to explain what that means for those that aren't on the committee, because essentially, as part of the drive to our climate and biodiversity action plan, is to reduce chemicals that are used in the town. And chemicals in this context meaning things like weed killers and other chemicals that are used to kill pests, basically. Now, as part of this process, we're working with an organisation called Pesticide Action Network, and they help, drive policy and help us write the things we need to do. So essentially, a 3-year action plan has been created, which we will work towards, working with the borough and county council to hopefully look at ways that these chemicals can be reduced and ultimately hopefully removed, or alternatives put in place. The action plan's on the bottom of the committee, and it's all there, and I think it's explains it very well. I think again it's one of these things that is an educational process that people need to sort of understand, and we will do press releases and various things to make people aware of this process. But what I'd like to do is recommend that the town council adopts the draft action plan, which will be reviewed on a regular basis. So I'm just wondering if anyone would like to second that or have any comments on that recommendation.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to second the proposal that we adopt this action plan. we may succeed. It may take longer than we think, but I do think that these, as Councillor Williams said, it's an educative process, and it's something that if we make a start, and particularly in the areas where we have real influence, then I think it can only be a good thing for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to congratulate Councillor Williams on achieving a meeting with the Cabinet Member for the Environment at Swale Borough Council to discuss the issues of making Faversham a chemical free town. So look forward to the progress on that one. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. So can we all vote to accept those minutes? Thank you. We're all in agreement? Yes, I think that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can we just go back? That was a vote for the action plan. So that was Councillor Williams proposed, Councillor Martin seconded, and that was for the action plan. So we could have a vote on that first before the minutes, please.
Right, that was the plan. Can we all vote on that? Yes, that's unanimous as well. Thank you. And minutes were proposed by Councillor Thomas. No, Councillor Williams. Yeah, and seconded by Councillor Martin. And do we all agree to accept those minutes? We do. We do. Thank you. Item 7, Public Spaces Committee, to receive the minutes of Public Spaces Committee dated 23rd of July 2020 and agree any recommendations. Councillor Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, a very productive meeting on the 23rd of July. Some of the key points to pick up on is that the committee decided that the highways improvement plan that is collated will form the basis for the action plan for the public spaces committee. During the discussion on the highways improvement plan, we looked at ways to resolve the points that were coming up on the highways improvement plan, and some of those are noted on the minutes, because ultimately we as a town council through the public spaces committee have to find sources of funding for the items we have on our highways improvement plan. So that is ongoing through various means, and liaising with the borough and Kent County Council as to whether funding can be got from them or whether or not we will be sourcing funding from other sources. Looking along, yes, we're continuing to progress with investigating the drinking fountain and the power supply in the marketplace, but again we will be liaising with the Borough Council as well to see if they will assist us with the funding for that. So I'm proposing to the council this evening that we accept the minutes of the Public Spaces Committee from the 23rd of July. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? To accept the recommendations or the whole of the minutes, is it?
We're just accepting the minutes. Thank you.
Accepting the minutes. A seconder to accept the minutes? Anyone seconding the minutes? Can't see any hands up. Councillor Perkin, thank you. And can we all vote to accept those minutes? Yeah, that looks unanimous. Thank you. And then do we need separate?
Can I just come in? I keep raising my hand and I don't know if you can't see me on your screen.
No, I can't actually. Cara, I don't know how to get you.
Yeah, Councillor Jackson, your camera doesn't seem to be on.
Oh. Would you like to come in anyway, Councillor Jackson?
Not at this stage, not now. The matters have passed that I wanted to speak on, so if we could just continue and
yeah, thank you. You're not coming up on screen.
No, I shall.
make a recommendation, and I don't know if we've got the functionality on this, but we could, if councillors aren't able to share their cameras and therefore be recognised, they could potentially create a chat and request to speak in the meeting. Councillor Jackson, if that's easier for you,
Yeah.
in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. And so we'll go back to, where are we now? We've accepted the minutes proposed by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor.
No, I need to get my camera working.
Yeah, and can we all vote? I think Councillor Jackson is trying to sort things out. I can't see her, but yeah, I think that's most of them. Fine. So we move on to item 8, policy and finance. To receive the minutes of policy and finance dated the 27th of July and agree any recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, to point out that there are no recommendations to accept, so we'll just be voting on accepting the minutes. The meeting was relatively quick and covered the following: supporting the renewal of the town office. So this is the work started by Councillor Saunders around looking to try and get community engagement around preserving and supporting community assets. The work goes on really. I think the initial focus groups and engagements have been undertaken, and there'll be further proposals on how that work can progress presented at the September meeting of the Policy and Finance Committee. We will, as proposed in these minutes, be looking at budgets in September, noting that this year COVID has rather put things out of kilter. So some of the kind of significant developments we were looking to progress, such as hiring a youth worker, have been put on hold. And so we're just going to review the budgets and see where we are spending less money than we anticipated, and consider what we do with that as we move forward through the rest of the year into the budget planning season, which will begin for us around October, November, and obviously culminate in January. So we'll be discussing the budgets and their current views in September, the end of this month. We also talked about face-to-face meetings and when it would be appropriate to start face-to-face meetings again, and took on board the guidance from NALC, and it was resolved to continue meeting virtually for the Policy and Finance Committee at least, and that will be obviously the same for the Town Council, but to review in 3 months' time. So in a month and a half, we should probably consider whether it's appropriate to meet again and see what the advice is again from NALC. The Town Council website is under review, and both the Town Clerk and myself have been in discussions with a couple of different suppliers, primarily to look at updating the website as it takes on board more content from external sources as we consolidate websites, but also to make it more manageable for the officers. And we hope to have a reasonably good update on that again at the meeting in September, at the end of September. Those were the major discussion points at the last committee meeting, and I propose that we accept those minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Knight? You're seconding, or you've got a comment? You're mute.
I'm seconding. Thank
You're
you.
seconding. Thank you. Thank you. And can we all vote? Yes. Thank you. Councillor Barker. Thank you. We've got item 9, Faversham Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group. Have we got Faversham Neighbourhood Plan? Councillor Irwin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will give you a brief update of our last meeting. It was Monday the 20th of July, which is actually quite a long time ago now.
Yes.
So I will supplement it with more pertinent information based on where we are today. Like Councillor Barker with Policy and Finance, there's actually no recommendations to be accepted, rather just the minutes. So firstly, some good news. We have our area designation. It was something that was quite a long time coming. We got that start of August, so that means that officially we have an area where we can make a neighbourhood plan. Prior to that, we had obviously several meetings. A lot of those were around forming the group and really understanding what the task in front of us looked like, but we're very much there now. On the 20th of July, we discussed some feedback we had with the planning department at Swale Borough Council. I think it's probably described in the minutes, but we had a degree of concern with our interactions with them and the fact that perhaps they weren't supporting us and expediting the neighbourhood plan designation as they should have. However, what I would say is our relationship has improved significantly. So I'd like to thank the Swale Borough Council Planning Department for that. We now have monthly meetings with them, which are very open, they're very transparent, and they give us an insight into what is going on with the Swale local plan, which of course is very important for us. So that's a real positive that's come out of it. At the last meeting as well, we discussed what at that point was the upcoming local plan panel. That meeting happened on Monday the 27th of, didn't happen in July, on the 30th of July. Prior to that meeting, we had a meeting with Faversham Swale Borough councillors where we expressed our perspective and our view in terms of the housing numbers. Unfortunately, Swale Borough Council local plan panel made a recommendation that was at odds with the recommendation of the neighbourhood plan steering group, but that's democracy for you. So essentially we have a housing number to work towards. Obviously that number hasn't been approved yet, but that is now working its way through Swale Borough Council. The what else can I tell you? The neighbourhood plan team and councillors, I think every councillor in this call, over the summer months, were going around conducting site appraisals. So we were appraising the sites that sit within the sites which had come forward in the call for sites, so potential development sites for Faversham, and I'd like to thank all of you for conducting those. We're also supported by the work that the Faversham Society have been conducting, again, in terms of site appraisals. Site selection is going to the local plan panel at Swale on the 29th of October, so we'll be accelerating our work around site assessment, site appraisal, really to ensure that the people have a say and can express a view around their preferences for housing around the town. To that end, our communication plan is finally getting into action. We had a number of false starts over COVID. We have 2 exhibitions planned. The first one runs from the 21st of September to the 4th of October, and then we have a second 2-week exhibition, both of which are going to be at Faversham Town Hall. In the next couple of days, we'll have some promotional materials out, and our hope is that as many residents, visitors, and people who work in the town come and visit and express their views and their preferences around the policies that should go into the neighbourhood plan. Councillor Barker has also been working, I'll let Councillor Barker or any other member of the steering group comment, has been working with our agency, Breakthrough Communications, to develop a series of surveys. Those surveys will be going out after we have the exhibition. Obviously, we'll use the inputs the findings from the exhibition to inform those, and again that will help us further refine the areas for policy development and our direction for policy development. So the surveys and the exhibitions are our first meaningful attempt at community engagement. Obviously, we haven't started writing the neighbourhood plan. There will be a formal engagement process once we have a plan to comment on, but we're really looking forward to getting people's views and perspectives over September and October. So I think I've covered what was in the minutes, and in addition, I've updated them somewhat. I don't know if any other members of the panel have any further comments. If not, then I would just ask that you accept the minutes.
Councillor Owen, sorry, could I just interrupt a moment, please? Item 6, you've actually got a recommendation to appoint Breakthrough. I don't think that's actually had a formal vote on that. So if we could do that first, please.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Would you like me to speak to this, Councillor?
yes, please.
So we looked at around 3 or 4 different agencies to help us with communications around the neighbourhood plan, and it's safe to say we had quite a diverse set of feedback. Really, there were people that we spoke to who pretty much weren't interested, as well as just because of kind of work and focus. And the two companies we did get insight or gain positive responses from were Breakthrough, who were incredibly cheap. I'll come back to price in a second, and Curtin & Co, who were very expensive, and so we initially had some kind of concerns about, you know, which quotes were reasonable given the great disparity. So we saw references from Breakthrough and Curtin as it happened, but the references from Breakthrough were very positive, and we've since decided to commission them, subject to this vote, clearly. It's worth noting that when we sought quotes, I packaged the work up into various different components. So we have bits for surveys, bits for promotions, bits for website management and so on, so that we could choose to purchase on a kind of piecemeal basis. And as such, we've engaged Breakthrough to look at provisioning the surveys. We're also getting some insight and support from Urban Vision, our town planning agency or supporting agency as well, and the pricing is such that it's, you know, it's just committing ourselves for that job, and subject to that kind of work we can then take a view on how competent they are. We're also going to, as part of this recommendation and agreement tonight, commission them to promote the exhibitions, and already we've talked through kind of a number of ways they would do that, including, you know, banners, presentations, radio, print and social media, ways to promote the exhibitions to try and drive as much participation as possible. So I have full confidence in them so far with my engagement, and they are well within the budget envelope that we had originally provisioned. So I propose that we accept taking on Breakthrough Communications to support the initial stages of the NHP promotion and engagement, and we can always change our minds if we're unhappy after those first 2 packages of work. So I propose that.
Thank you. I would second that. Or are there any comments on that? Any comments before I would second that? Can we all vote on that then? You happy with that? Absolutely. Thank you. It's unanimous to me. Right, and then do we need to accept the minutes as well?
Yes.
Separately?
Yes, we do. Madam Mayor, can I propose that the council accept the minutes from the 20th of July meeting?
Thank you. And Councillor Barker will second. And
Yeah.
can we all vote? Thank you. Councillor Jackson, you are now on screen. Your camera is definitely working now. Thank you. I can see you now. Right, we're going to move to Item 10, Town Marketing Group, to receive the recommendations of the Town Marketing Group. I think Councillor Knights, you would come in on this. Thank you. Disappear.
I think Councillor Knights has lost connection. I can't see her on the screen.
Just at the wrong time. Councillor Martin.
In the absence of Councillor Knights, apologies. I'll take you very quickly through it and then we'll come back to the one recommendation. It was suggested about changes to street signage in Court Street and East Street gates due to the comments of various people. I'm pleased to say that it appears that today those have been changed, so, or some of them.
Yes.
There's particularly a couple of notices, very polite notices, asking for cyclists to dismount. So I'm pleased to say that's now there. There was a request for Eat Out to Help Out be advertised, and he was taking part. But I think that did go on. But of course, that scheme is now finished as well. There were concerns raised over footfall counts, although it's generally agreed that they were probably correct.
Yeah.
It was noted this may cause further contention to repeat, but it was asked not to post any further reference to footfall figures. But we are obviously helping Swale in monitoring those in the town centre for everything. And it was suggested that large-scale photographs of Faversham Creek, chart mills and a hand-drawn map be included on the front windows of 12 Marketplace.
Yeah.
And each of the 4 doors to have a short history fact based on the 4 Bs: bricks, bangers, brewery and boats. I think she means bombs, but we'll go on with that anyway. The hand-drawn map to be, there's also need for a map to be on the rear of the building, which is actually part of the planning consent for the town hall anyway, that we should put a town plan on there. So the recommendation is that we will ask for quotations for the map to be required, and then Councillor Knights proposes that the Town Marketing Group recommends that one-way vinyl is placed on the windows at 12 Marketplace depicting images which will be finalised via email. And Councillor Knights has managed to get back in. Well done. Just run through that very quickly, Councillor Knights. Over to you.
Sorry about that. So it was running on my phone as well. I went in as a guest on my phone. Yeah, well, I did hear what you were saying because I was listening on my phone. I've lost all my paper now. But oh, smashed a glass.
Yeah.
Right, sorry about that. Bit of cabaret going on here. I think you updated them very well, Councillor Martin. Thank you very much indeed. Did we just get down to the to my proposal now? Did you?
Yes.
Right. I'd like to propose that the Town Marketing Group recommends that we have one-way vinyl placed in the windows of 12 Marketplace, depicting the images that I did hear Councillor Martin saying. So this is basically, it's one-way vinyl. So from outside, as you're walking down Court Street, you'll see these lovely, great big images bringing the creek into the town and bringing the countryside into the town, and obviously lots of information also. But if you're inside the building, you've still got a complete view of the market square. So it doesn't stop you seeing out. It just sees people seeing in. So people who are there doing things will have their privacy. Doors open, obviously, then they can see in. So that's my proposal. That I would like someone to second that we get some images and prices to bring back to full council.
I'll second the proposal if I may, if there's no other questions.
Councillor Irwin.
Yeah, can I just one question, and it's just front of mind for me, obviously, because we'll be having an exhibition over September into November. Are these vinyls removable? So I'm thinking, you know, it is used as an exhibition space, and obviously part of the purpose of an exhibition is to attract people into a building because they can see the exhibition is ongoing. Is that an option? Can they be taken off and put back on again, or?
Well, they can be
Yeah.
taken off, but once they're taken off, I don't know whether they'll be put on.
Right.
With this one-way vision, though, is that when the lights are off, so during the day, it doesn't look like an empty space as it does at
Yeah.
the moment, and it depicts some of the beauty spots of Faversham for when visitors come down. And also, we want to have a map of the town, so telling you where important things are, like churches, hospitals, or anything that you may need when you're visiting the town, points of interest and that sort of thing. But when the lights are on, you can see in. So if it's an afternoon or an evening, like an afternoon in the winter or an evening exhibition, if the lights are on, you can see in.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So it's not, it's one way during the day, a bit like a net curtain. Think of it like a net curtain, sort of, an upmarket net curtain.
Yeah.
But it will give it a real feature so that people come in from the back car park, who's going to have a map on the back wall there, so that people coming through can see the points of interest. And then as you come round the front, the big window, and the return would be the Nautical Festival, something colourful. And then on the windows would be 4 pieces of history. And then on the other one would be the map. And then what was the other one? Chart meals. So that's the things that we came up with, that we'd like to sort of get some visuals for everybody. But obviously we're open to suggestions too. But it just makes it look like a feature when you're coming down Court Street, and brings it alive.
Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jackson?
Yes, I'm trying to unmute. Thank you. Does it restrict light going into the building?
Not at all. I've got this in my kitchen because obviously I'm right on the road. But someone can stand outside my window and actually put their nose on my window, and I can put my nose. I can see them, they can't see me. But I have got a full view of the wreck, which is what I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to lose light, and that's why I had a one-way vinyl rather than a blind. So no view and no lights lost, no.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Irwin.
Yeah, so thank you for the description, Councillor. And I can see the real value in highlighting some of the wonderful things to see around town. I think it's a great idea. I just wonder whether it would be, because I know equally we have a television screen. Sometimes we put it in a window. It has rolling information on it and so on. And I just, perhaps this is a little bit too much detail for discussion now, but that we could leave a small section so we could promote whatever is current or relevant.
We've still got side windows for any posters or television, so we still have got other areas that we can put that sort of information.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you. So any other comments? So we have a proposer. Was that Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Knight? Can we all vote on the recommendation? I think that looks unanimous. Thank you. And now we need to vote on the minutes. Is that correct? Who proposes? Councillor Perkin.
Can I just ask a question about signage? I don't know whether it's an appropriate time to bring it up. Is it appropriate to talk about the signage at this point, or is that a discussion for another day?
Is that the signage that's going up at the moment?
Yeah.
I've been talking. I'm talking to Adam tomorrow, and I'm going to talk to Swell about it tomorrow, because I know there's a few people. I wasn't aware it was going up today. It just suddenly appeared, and I got sent a photograph. So I need to find out a bit more details of who put it up, what's going up, and why, and the heights and everything.
Can I just ask first? Can I just make a suggestion?
Yes. Yes.
I have emailed about this in the past. I'm still quite concerned about the blocking of the gates by delivery vans, and I wondered whether we could recommend that at least there is signage on the gate with maybe the postcode of the loading bays that are around the back of 12 Marketplace to try and prevent that gate from being blocked at any point.
Yeah, that was mentioned at the Faversham Marketing Group. We are changing the signs, and there is going to say do not obstruct, and these are for emergency vehicles. So there are signs. That's what I've got to find out tomorrow when they're going up and what's been agreed. But this was discussed at the Faversham Marketing Group meeting in August.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think we're there.
Madam Mayor, before we go on, can we just please note that Councillor BJ Martin has now joined the meeting?
Oh, thank you. Councillor E. Martin. Lovely. Right. Now, we voted on the recommendations. No, we didn't. We stopped. Councillor Martin, Councillor Knight, and are we in favour of the recommendations? Yes. Looks like everyone. Cannot see Councillor Martin, B. Martin. I don't know if he could let Town Clerk know.
Technical issues, Madam Mayor, and I wasn't here for the full debate on this item, so I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you. And now can we propose for the minutes to accept the minutes as a whole? Have I got a proposer? Was Councillor Martin, seconder Councillor Knight, and can we all vote on that? That are able to. Obviously, Councillor Martin will abstain. Thank you. Look, unanimous on that. Thank you. Now, Councillor Irwin, I don't know whether you would like to respond to the Manston Airport proposal or application.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to talk about it, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm aware that it's on the agenda regarding how we feel and how we would look to engage with the discussion around the proposals for Manston Airport, and it's specifically regarding its holding pattern over Faversham. I did note that I think there's a three-part consultation exercise. The second consultation has closed. It actually closed in August. We weren't a stakeholder in that consultation. My understanding is that consultation was limited to those who are involved in the use of airspace. But I know a number of councillors on this call this evening attended a very useful and interesting briefing with the Kent Gliding Club, and very briefly, essentially any airspace within the holding pattern is not in controlled airspace. What that means is that is airspace which is up for grabs for anyone who wishes to use it, and what that means is potentially we'll have Kent Gliding Club using that airspace at the same time as commercial aircraft. So I think there's potentially a safety issue. I don't know a huge amount about aircraft and issues, but there's a potential issue. Of course, there's also the potential issue of noise pollution and chemical pollution with the holding pattern over Faversham. So really at this stage, I don't think I've got any strong recommendations about whether we support it, whether we object to it. However, I do think that as a town council, we should ensure that we have a seat at the table in terms of being a consultee. And what I would, I'll open it up for other people's views very much, but I think it would be really useful if the town clerk were to write to the developers just indicating that we wish to be involved in the conversation, given that there is a holding pattern over Faversham, which inevitably will impact Faversham residents. Whether that's a big impact, a negative impact, a positive impact, I think it's too early to say, but I think we should definitely have a seat at the table.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Ben Martin, you would like to come in?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I do apologise to everyone for not being on camera. Unfortunately, it seems to have packed up again. So on this one, I'd actually go a bit further than Councillor Irwin. I think that not only should we respond to the consultation, but that we should object to not only the flight path but the reopening. To my mind, there is no need for expansion of runway facilities in the southeast of England. We need to be moving away from air travel and the impact that it has on the environment. And to do that, actually, reopening a runway is the wrong way of doing it. That's just increasing the amount of planes that can come into the southeast of England. More specifically regarding Faversham, this flight path would go directly above the AQMA at Ospringe Street. Now, for anybody that understands chemistry, the nitrogen dioxide emissions from jet aircraft are actually heavier than air. So as the plane goes over the top of our lovely AQMA, which already has issues with nitrogen dioxide levels, those nitrous emissions will come down and enter our AQMA, increasing the issue that we have with air pollution. For that reason alone, I think we need to be objecting, not to mention the safety issues and concerns raised by Councillor Irwin with regard to having a holding pattern in uncontrolled airspace so close to a community-run air facility that Kent Gliding Club use. I mean, it's an accident waiting to happen, to my mind, and I don't think any of us wish to see such a thing. So my view is that we not only should we actually take part in this consultation, but that we should object in the strongest possible terms. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have someone that would second that proposal? Councillor Martin.
The other, if I may, Madam Mayor, yes, I can fully understand where Councillor Ben Martin is coming from on this. There are a good number of issues around it. The holding pattern that particularly is the thing that concerns me. Having aircraft flying over a fairly densely populated area is normal these days, but I do think that having one flying immediately over an air quality monitoring area, and also having one where it's a holding pattern, so it's where planes will circle time and time again if it's required. Now, my limited knowledge of aviation tells me that this would not be necessarily used very often, particularly in the early startup days of any facility that's regenerated at Manston. However, as time goes on, we've and presumably as COVID crises reduce around the world, we will see an increase in air travel, and I believe that this is just something that if we start now, we may stand a chance of actually, if at very least, ensuring that flights are out at sea, not over the town. I'd hate to be, as Councillor Ben Martin said, I'd hate to see an accident with a light aircraft or a glider causing us to be the next infamous place in the country for an air disaster. I don't want Faversham's name to be linked to Lockerbie. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillors Martin and Councillor Ben J. Martin. I agree with much of what you raised in the issues that you raised this evening. I was going to suggest if you would be willing to accept that in the first instance we write an objection for the design option, which includes a holding pattern over Faversham. So essentially there are 4 holding patterns, which seems excessive. I think we were told in good faith by Kent Gliding Club that some of the larger airports have 2 holding patterns. Why a smaller airport needs 4 holding patterns, I'm not sure. But if Councillor Martin would accept that in the first instance we write to the developer indicating that we would wish them to remove the option for a holding pattern over Faversham, and we take time to consider the other issues raised by Councillor Martin before we develop a full position of outright opposition to the airport reopening. But in the first instance, we just asked to remove the holding pattern over Faversham.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Jackson would like to come in.
Yes, I agree about the holding pattern and that maybe over the estuary would be a better option. but I cannot agree to opposing it completely. A, because I think with Brexit we're going to get more lorries on the road, and as I understand this is a cargo airport at the moment, transportation.
Yeah.
So it will take vehicles off of the road if we're using air. And the other thing is, to me, which is very important, is employment in that area, which is very deprived. So have the concerns noted and agree, but I cannot wholly at this stage oppose it, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other councillor wishing to come in?
Madam Mayor, just to say that I'm willing to accept Councillor Irwin's suggestion of dropping down to just objection to the proposed holding pattern for now, with further discussion to take place on the other elements at a later date.
Thank you. I think, Councillor Irwin, I was at the meeting, there were 4 holding patterns, weren't there? And the one out at sea, the Gliding Club would have been happy as well to accept. The one that was out on the estuary, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's right, Madam Mayor. They seem to think that you know, and we can obviously know a lot more about aviation than I do, is that 4 is excessive and unnecessary. And yeah, I do agree with Councillor Martin that there's more of a discussion to be had, and but in the meantime he would accept that amendment just to write in opposition to the holding pattern over Faversham.
Thank you. So Councillor Irwin proposed, and who seconded that suggestion? Councillor T. Martin, wasn't it? I've lost track of it now. I think it was T. Martin. So can we vote that will be recommendation? I think is that everyone that I could see? Well, no, Councillor Jones. Yep, thank you. So that's the item for Manston Airport. Done. Item 12. I missed most of that. I was thrown out for a while, so I'm afraid the town clerk missed most of that. Could you repeat, Councillor Irwin, what you would like what you have proposed to happen?
Yes, the proposal was that we write to the developer expressing our opposition to the option of a holding pattern over Faversham, and equally indicating that we will be responding, making a more full response to the public consultation.
Thank you. Is that okay, Town Clerk?
That's lovely, thank you.
Thank you. And we will move on to item 12, the A251 A2 Junction Consultation. To respond, oh, actually the deadline is the 14th of September. Is there a councillor that would like to respond to that? Councillor Martin or possibly Councillor Thomas? Or
Councillor Martin, yeah, I'm happy to come in on this one.
Thank you.
And welcome, Councillor Hook. I know that was a pretty hefty JTB. And funnily enough, this was the
it's
last
not finished
item.
yet.
I was going to say
there's a couple of items, but the interesting and important ones for Faversham were done. So I joined this meeting. Sorry for being late.
Thank you.
Funnily enough, this was the last item that I discussed at the JTB as well, was the A251 consultation. So my first and foremost, I'd like to express and encourage my wish that all residents that utilise the junction do take part in this consultation. The feedback will make a difference, and it has just been agreed that no work will start until the finalised designs go back to the Joint Transport Board in December. For my mind, the design, it's better than nothing, but it does need a lot of improvement. I think there's a complete lack of consideration for cyclists. I think the pedestrian access is minimal at best, and I think that KCC could do better on this design, particularly with regard for more vulnerable road users, i.e. pedestrians and cyclists. I know residents have asked that this scheme be expanded to include the MAL, but I don't think that the finances are in place to be able to do that, given that this is a a project funded by Section 106 funding, and I know that the funding on this for development has to be spent by March of next year, so I'm not convinced that there would be the time to do a complete redesign to expand it to include the MAL. That being said, I do think this council needs to point out in the consultation that though we support the principle of having junction improvements to this particular junction, we would like to see further improvements for pedestrians and cyclists.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any councillors? Councillor Irwin.
Yes, I just to build upon what Councillor Martin said. Absolutely, thoroughly agree with him. You know, this council's committed to active transport, to encouraging walking and cycling. I think also importantly, the south of Watling Street essentially is going to have many more residents than it does currently over the forthcoming years. You know, potentially a settlement, the Duchy settlement, East Faversham, Preston Fields, obviously we'll have other developments coming online. So I think the current proposal is completely inadequate. I think it only has pedestrian crossing on one arm, for instance, rather than all three arms. And as mentioned, there's no accounts being taken of cyclists and how that junction can be used for cyclists. So I do think it needs a rethink. I think it's very encouraging to know that KCC will have time to redesign it if it's not going to go back until December. So yeah, I agree that as a council we should certainly put in a response indicating the inadequacies of the plan as it stands.
Thank you. Any other comments, or shall we vote on that will be the response? Oh, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, one of the opportunities that appears to be lost in this current drawing, and it may just be me looking at it, is there's no footpath on the southern side of that part of the A2 where they're actually making that junction, and there doesn't appear to be any mitigation to add one. I just wonder whether we should comment that are they actually going to put a mitigation in, or put a footpath in from the Ashford Road towards the end of this, with a view to it being possibly extended in conjunction with other matters at a later date.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Irwin.
Just a question really for colleagues who sit on the Joint Transport Board. Obviously we have a number of ideas. Do you think it would be possible for us to actually have a meeting with KCC to discuss the junction, in addition just to submitting a written response, given you know the fact that it is in Faversham? It's a quite an important strategic junction for today, but also for tomorrow and our future plans. Is that something that we would support requesting?
Definitely, we could definitely request that meeting, either while the consultation's still open or at the end of it, to assess the results of what people have had to say. I think we can definitely request that, and I would be astonished if they didn't agree to have that kind of meeting with us.
Thank you. Yes, are we all in agreement to do that, to request that meeting? Can we vote on that?
Agreed to requesting the meeting. Can I just be clear on?
Yes.
To feedback our comments regarding the lack of cycling and pedestrian infrastructure, including a footpath on the southern side of the A2, Watling Street, Canterbury Road, London Road, between the Ashford Road and ideally in the long term the Abbey School, and that we in principle support improvement to this junction.
Definitely. Thank you. Councillor Perkin.
No. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I completely agree with what Councillor Martin's just said. I also think it's worth noting that the Watling Street, or the A2, is nearly 2.5 kilometres long, and it's only got 2 crossing points at the moment by foot and cycle, one of which is obviously over the top of the road, which is not easy to access for wheelchair users or people with buggies or cycling in general. So I think that the lack of pedestrian crossings as well is a real problem. Like 2.5 kilometres with only 2 crossings, one of which is not usable for a lot of people, is not ideal. So I think that's worth putting in our response as well.
Thank you. We're all happy with that, or any other comments? No, so Town Clerk, that's our response, yes?
Thank you. Yes, I've got that.
You. Item 13, planning for the future white paper consultation. To respond to the consultation, planning for the future. Deadline is the 15th of October. Changes to the current plan system. Deadline is the 12th of September. Do we have Councillor Irwin or Councillor Barker? Would either of you like to respond to that? Item 13.
Madam Mayor, if I may come in on this one.
Oh, Councillor, thank you. Councillor Martin.
So first and foremost, it has to be noted that these are 2 slightly separate issues that are out for consultation at the moment. First and foremost is the changes to the current planning system. Now, it is worth noting that under the proposals that the government have released, this would result in Swales' housing target, instead of being 1,048 dwellings per annum, as is currently being worked to in the current local plan review, it would actually increase to 1,480 new dwellings per annum, which would pretty much blow out the water any work that's currently been done on local plans or the neighbourhood plan, and quite frankly would represent an almost impossible task for anyone in this area to actually deal with in terms of the amount of development required. My calculations are that it would require virtually everything that's come forward in the current SHLA in order to fulfil such a high target. It is grossly unfair on areas such as Swale and Canterbury and the Ashford area. It does have some benefits for other areas within Kent. For example, Dartford and Medway would actually see their housing targets reduced slightly. But it is just completely out of line with what's actually deliverable. It's worth noting that in this part of the county, we struggle to hit the current 700 new dwellings per annum, building usually around 650 to 700 per annum. And it's not the fault of local government that houses aren't being built. Across this country, councils have given planning permission for over 1 million new homes over the last 3 years that are yet to have works commenced to start building them. So it isn't local authorities that are the problem. It's not the planning system that's the problem. It is the developers' land banking that is the problem. And we need to, I feel that in that part of the response, we need to be very clear and state that changes that result in increasing and changing the standard method of calculation for growth are completely unacceptable, and the plan changes are also unacceptable. In terms of the second part, the planning white paper is a very long document which again needs breaking down into smaller bite-sized chunks. And for me, one of the key elements of it is this change of what they define as being small development sites. Currently, a small development site is anything of 10 dwellings or less. The government's proposal is to increase this to 50 dwellings or less. Now, the thing about being a small development site is that you wouldn't be required as a developer to contribute to infrastructure projects, nor to contribute to affordable housing. So essentially what we'd be saying is any site of 50 or less, the developer can build out without having to provide any money for new schools, any money for new doctors' surgeries, or providing affordable housing. Now, given the sites in and around this area and the number of smaller sites that are being looked at and have been put forward in the SHLA, I think it would be grossly unfair and ridiculous, to be honest, to accept such a change to planning legislation which would allow developers to not provide the affordable housing we need. this is a power grab by the Conservative government, and it's one that we should resist, and we should put forward our view that actually these proposals are completely unacceptable. They remove local involvement in the planning process. They remove the ability of local residents and local councillors to actually decide on sustainable growth models, and offer a huge windfall for developers, not the local democracy and the planning system that we need. It is not, as they put it, about planning for the future and sustainable development. It is about a power grab for central government, and we should resist it at all costs.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Irwin?
Well said, Councillor Martin. I wouldn't know where to start. You know, I think part of the difficulty with this, and my particular difficulty with it, is I look at a document, and I'm talking about the government's consultation, and frankly, I just wouldn't know where to start with it. You know, its criticisms of the current system are just clearly something I don't recognise at all. I agree. I think it's a purely political document. I think it's coming from a Secretary of State who's already been caught working with developers, and you know, I'm just despondent. I'm not quite sure that responding to it will make any difference for this government. They appear to do whatever they want to do, but I do agree that we should try.
Thank you.
And I agree with the points.
Welcome, Councillor Saunders. Does anyone else have any comments? Councillor Thomas.
Just to say, I do support Councillor Ben Martin's comments about these proposals that the government have put forward. It does seem all geared up to assist developers rather than local residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to add any comments? Councillor Saunders.
Okay, sorry, Mayor, I've missed the
Yes.
discussion, so what I'm going to say might have been covered. It does seem to me, in relation to both the white paper and the other document about housing numbers, that there's a need to apply political pressure, not just to respond to the consultation. And I wondered whether you discussed writing to our MP and expressing our concern about the proposals, and that they would have very little support amongst the local population.
Councillor Saunders, could we take a vote on that? Those that would like us to write to our MP?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to accept that as being part of the overall motion.
Yes, thank you. And are we all in favour of that then? Yes, we are.
Though I do believe Councillor Perkin was waiting to speak as well, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Perkin.
No, I was just going to suggest what Councillor Saunders said, in that we put a bit of pressure on our MPs.
Yeah, I thought you might. No, that's fine then. So we're all in. Councillor Barker.
So I agree with the motion and will support it when it comes to vote. I would like to note, though, that although, you know, Swale Borough Council aren't changing planning or planning policy, I do think Swale Borough Council also live slightly in a wibbly wobbly land when the current local plan strategy suggests that a huge proportion of those houses will come from windfall sites, and those windfall sites are also sort of sites of 50 houses or less, and there's no protection in there for Faversham at all against those, yet a significant proportion of housing proposed to take up by Faversham. So I support on the substantive proposal on both the national policy and the planning for the future, that and we should write to our MP, so I support those. But I do worry about Swale Borough Council and its approach to planning too.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. So, Town Clerk, are you happy with that?
Yes, I am, but I may refer to Councillor BJ Martin just some of the wording, if that's okay.
I'm sure. Thank you. So if we could move on to item 14, the Kent Downs area of outstanding natural beauty and the draft management plan for 2020 to 2025 to respond to the countdowns. Okay. Deadline, oh, I think it's tonight, the 7th of September. Councillor Barker.
Yeah, I mean, rather than make a point on the actual AONB consultation itself, because it's, you know, it's not an unreasonable paper in lots of ways. I am really disappointed that, and clearly the area of outstanding national beauty doesn't sit within the bounds of the parish of Faversham, but we, you know, sit on the edge of it and are a historic town in the context of the beautiful outstanding national beauty in the Kent Downs. I am extremely disappointed that we get very little prior sight of a paper like this. It's really disappointing. I'd just like to register my disappointment in that.
Thank you. Any other councillors wishing to come in?
Madam Mayor, yes, please.
Councillor Martin.
Just to echo Councillor Barker on this one, at any local authority level, it seems that the details of this consultation have been passed on very last minute. I do subscribe to KCC's consultation list, which this is part of, and I do not recall seeing this earlier than last week, which is quite concerning. I mean, I saw the A251A2 consultation very early on. The consultation on 20's plenty, etc., came through with no problems. But this one, I'll be honest, the first sight I got of it was when it appeared on the local plan panel agenda a week ago at Swale. So it's quite frustrating that this didn't come through, and I don't for a second believe that our county member actually saw it early enough either. So that does beg the question as to what went on at KCC's consultation team to mean that people didn't get proper sight of what is a very large and substantial document, and quite frankly would take, as a dyslexic, it would take me a good week to get through the entire thing, which makes it virtually impossible for me to comment on tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Hook, you would like to comment? You're mute. You're mute. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, if nothing else, perhaps we can make a comment that it's been very late. I mean, the AONB is not administered by either by the Borough Council or by the County Council. It's an independent quango that exists under statute in its own right, and it's its consultation. It seems to be being hosted on the Kent County Council website, but as I understand it, it's not a Kent County Council consultation, it's the board of the area of outstanding natural beauty whose consultation it is. So they perhaps need to consider whether they've given enough time, especially as August is right in the middle of that time, and lots of things slow down. People go away, as we know, in August. The documentation for it is divided into chapters that deal with each of the sort of territories within the area of outstanding natural beauty, which goes all the way from the hills just outside Dover and Folkestone right up to the western extremity of the county. And the downs, the North Downs themselves, carry all the way on to Surrey, and you know, there's the South Downs, which are more in Sussex going into Hampshire, which were made a national park about 10 years ago. I'm actually interested a little bit to think about whether in the future there might be a North Downs National Park, but that's a conversation for another time. The section, the chapter that deals with the bit that's nearest to us, the kind of area around Challock, is 19 pages, I think it was. So the whole documentation for the whole of the county is several hundreds of pages. I expect all the parish councils in the area of outstanding natural beauty have been written to, so they'll hopefully make comments. I understand the Faversham Society are making comments, and the Faversham Society which is a brilliant organisation for many reasons. They have lots of expertise, scientific, technical. So I haven't seen what they're proposing to say, but based on past form, I expect it will be very sensible. So it may well be that we can say we support what the Faversham Society will be saying.
Sounds very good, thank you. And Councillor Perkin, you were next.
I think that's a good suggestion from Councillor Hook. I just think that I really want to kind of echo what Councillor Barker has said about the disappointment of not being able to have access to it earlier, just because I think that all of us really got elected on a standpoint of really discussing all of the things that we would be discussing with our residents, and I haven't really had enough time to be able to completely digest it and discuss it fully with people in my ward. So I would just like to echo the fact that it would be preferable if these things came to us earlier, and I understand what Councillor Hook has said about it not being a KCC consultation, but if KCC are going to host consultations in that manner, it would be good if we were told about them a little bit earlier in the future.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. So we're clear on that, Town Clerk? Yeah.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, we can't respond by midnight, can we? Item 15, the autumn newsletter. Hopefully you've all had a copy, a draft copy of the newsletter. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at that. And does anyone have any comments they wish to raise? Councillor Barker?
It may just be the way the typesetting at the moment. And it may be because the 20s plenty thing will be spread over 2 pages, but the kind of strapline of healthier, safer, cleaner doesn't really work well as it's laid out here. But that's probably because it can be put together as one sort of double page spread, is it? I'm assuming. Also, there's a couple of spelling mistakes, not spelling mistakes, but grammatical errors on the front page, which I'll point out in an email. I'll send across in an email.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? No, we're all happy to accept. Do I have a proposal to accept the newsletter? Anyone proposing to accept it?
I'm happy.
Councillor Martin? You, Martin? And seconder?
I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Williams, thank you. And can we all vote?
Agreed.
Thank you. And item 16, payments and receipts, or receipts and payments. We've all had a chance to look at these.
Can I ask a question, please?
Councillor Knight.
The only query I've got is the Bones Brothers. Is that for the fire pump storage, that £400?
Yes, that's for the storage for the year.
For the year, yes.
So can that be raised again then about the storage? Because I thought we did discuss that before. Has it not come to anything with Kent Fire Brigade?
I don't think it's ever actually been discussed formally in a meeting. I couldn't find anything, but I'll put it on policy and finance. And we are making inquiries with the museum, although I think they already have a similar thing, but we are making inquiries and I'll bring it to policy and finance at the end of the month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments? Everyone.
May I propose then, Madam Mayor, that we accept these receipts and payments so that they can all be paid?
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Perkin. Thank you. And can we all vote? It's unanimous. Thank you. very much.
Agreed.
Yes, receipts and payments, and that brings us to the last of the agenda items. So unless there's any other business, no. And I'll just say thank you. Oh, Councillor Perkins.
Sorry, can I just put on to, just for the minutes, that our thanks to the Faversham Salvation Army that have been running the community wardrobe over the summer holidays. They've managed to collect a huge amount of school uniform for both secondary and primary school, and have been able to sort quite a lot of families out in a time where money's been really a concern for a lot of people. So I just wanted to put on there our thanks for what has been a really successful and very kind project.
We have got an award, a Mayor's Thank You Award, already printed for them. Thank you. So they will be getting that during September. Thank you. Sorry, one or two others as well.
A very, very quick one from me, Madam Mayor, and that's purely to encourage any members of the public which may be listening to please take part in all the consultations around at the moment, particularly on the 20s plenty and the A251 A2 junction. I know I'm repeating myself, but I don't think we can make too much of a thing about making sure that residents do respond to these very important consultations as they do decide on the direction and what occurs in the future.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, I'm sure we'll do that. And just to thank all of you, I know everyone's worked really hard in August, our community as well as our councillors, and if we carry on, I think we're doing very well. So thank you all, and I'll see one or two of you at the next meeting, but I think most of you will be leaving us now. So, and I hope you're all back to routine, or the new routine, the new normal as it was, or it is. So yeah, well done and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. See you again later.
Thank you.
Bye bye.